Well, Kenny's friendship means more to me than our hit records. Actually, we're kind of like a little soulmates.
You recorded that as a duet with Dolly Parton.
I did.
Tell me about that, because there's obviously been something special going on between you and Dolly Parton.
Well, something special, but not what it sounds like.
For years, Dolly Parton denied there was ever anything romantic between her and Kenny Rogers. But after the death of her husband in 2025, Dolly began speaking about Kenny with a level of honesty and emotional openness the public had rarely heard before. And what she finally revealed reframed one of the most talked about relationships in country music history.
I couldn't believe it this morning when I got up and turned on the TV, checking to see what the coronavirus was doing. And they told me that my friend and singing partner, Kenny Rogers, had passed away.
So why did Dolly Parton wait 40 years to finally speak this openly about Kenny Rogers? Join us as we reveal everything Dolly Parton has to say about Kenny Rogers. The studio that started it all. When Dolly and Kenny met, they had already been in the same rooms, on the same stages, moving through the same circles for years. But none of that produced anything. What eventually produced it was the events of one afternoon in a recording studio in 1983. And it almost did not happen at all. Barry Gibb had written a song and handed it to Kenny to record. Kenny spent 4 days in the studio trying to make it work. By the end of those 4 days, he told Barry plainly that he did not like the song anymore and could not go any further with it. That was the moment Barry made a suggestion that they needed Dolly Parton. Barry had written Islands in the Stream with his brothers as a love duet. From the beginning, it was designed for 2 voices, but Kenny had been attempting it alone, and something was missing that 4 days of studio work couldn't fix. The song needed a counterpart, because Barry had written the female part with a specific kind of warmth in mind, and nothing Kenny tried in that studio was producing it. He was ready to walk away entirely. Barry's suggestion was the last resort. As it turned out, Dolly was in the very same building that day. Kenny's manager spotted her downstairs and was sent to bring her up. What happened next was something Kenny talked about for the rest of his life. She walked into the room, listened once, and immediately stepped in to sing. The moment she opened her mouth, everything changed. That song was Islands in the Stream, and within weeks, it would be #1 in the country. By August 1983, Islands in the Stream was sitting at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It went platinum. It sold over 2 million copies. It knocked Michael Jackson's Wanna Be Startin' Something off the top spot. And 40 years later, it is still being downloaded. But what fans noticed more than the chart position was what happened every single time the two of them performed it together. Kenny's eyes followed her when she moved. Dolly's laughter came easily, without effort. The playful exchanges between them looked less like performance and more like 2 people who genuinely delighted in each other's company. Audiences noticed immediately, and even the media got a whiff of it. Then the questions started flowing in. The collaboration did not stop with one song. In 1984, Dolly and Kenny released a Christmas album that became one of the most beloved seasonal records of its era. They starred together in a television holiday special that same year, and it became appointment viewing across the country. The special drew millions of viewers, but what people remembered wasn't just the music. It was how natural the two of them felt together on screen. More than the chart's success, that chemistry convinced audiences they were watching something real. Then came Real Love in 1985, another #1, followed by a nationwide tour. And everywhere they went, the same question followed. The same question, and always the same answer. For 40 years, that answer never changed. But what was underneath it, what neither of them was saying, was something else entirely. The rumor that never died. The rumors started early and never really stopped. Fans watching Dolly and Kenny perform together did not need a tabloid to tell them something was there. They could see it. The way Kenny put his arm around her shoulder and leaned in close. The way Dolly laughed before he even finished the joke, like she already knew what was coming. The way they finished each other's thoughts in interviews without a pause. The fuel for the rumors was not just their stage chemistry. The personal circumstances on both sides made the speculation feel completely believable. Dolly had been married to Carl Dean since 1966. Carl was famously private. He almost never attended her concerts or public events, avoided cameras, and for 60 years kept himself completely out of her public life. For 60 years, Dolly's very public life had a gap in it, right, where a husband was supposed to be visible, and people filled it with Kenny. Kenny's situation did nothing to slow the rumors. Over the course of his life, he was married 5 times. While he and Dolly were close friends and active collaborators, he was going through marriages and divorces that played out very publicly. His first marriage ended before his career took off. His second lasted just over a year. His third, to Marianne Gordon, was the longest, 15 years, and it overlapped directly with the most active period of his friendship with Dolly. His fourth and fifth marriages came later, after the collaborations had slowed. The pattern wasn't lost on anyone paying attention. Kenny Rogers kept searching for something in marriage that seemed to keep not quite arriving. And standing beside him through all of it, unchanged and constant, was Dolly. The two of them were fully aware of what people thought. They were asked about it constantly, in every interview, at every event, backstage before every performance. And they handled it the same way every time. They laughed. Dolly would make a playful remark. Kenny would tease her back. They would deny it, but in a way that was so warm and so relaxed that the denials somehow made people more convinced, not less. And one journalist finally got him to stop laughing. The public mostly read this as a polished denial, the kind of thing two careful celebrities say to protect a bigger secret. It seemed hard to believe that two people could feel that much and simply choose the friendship over and over for 40 years. But then, Kenny sat down with a journalist who had been asking hard questions for 50 years, and for the first time, he didn't laugh. He answered. What Kenny finally admitted. In 2014, Kenny sat down with journalist Dan Rather and said something no interviewer had managed to get out of him before. He said the tension between them was real and electric. He said he believed consummating a relationship like theirs would have taken something away that could never be replaced. And then, the sentence that changes everything, he said Dolly shared that belief. Both of them. He was specific about that. Both of them. Dan wasn't interviewing Kenny like an entertainment reporter chasing gossip. He approached the subject slowly, almost carefully, which is part of why Kenny answered differently than he usually did. There was no studio audience laughing at the flirtation, no quick joke to move past the question. And, for one of the first times publicly, Kenny sounded less like a performer protecting a story, and more like a man reflecting honestly on a relationship that had shaped a huge part of his life. And to some people, that explanation was entirely believable. Deep emotional friendships do exist, especially between artists who spend years creating together. Part of what made Dolly and Kenny so fascinating was that the line between friendship and romance never seemed fully visible from the outside. What made the moment so striking was not that Kenny admitted there had been feelings between them. Most people already suspected that. It was the calmness with which he explained why nothing happened. There was no regret in his voice, no sense that either of them believed they had missed out on some great love story. If anything, Kenny sounded convinced that the reason the friendship survived for 40 years was that they had both understood exactly where the line was and chosen not to cross it. That last detail is the one that matters most, because it means the conversation had happened. Kenny's wording strongly suggested that, at some point, the two of them had privately acknowledged what existed between them and consciously decided not to cross that line. What that choice cost them and what it protected would only become fully visible years later. Another detail adds a different kind of weight to all of this. Marianne Gordon, who was married to Kenny for 15 years and was present through a significant portion of his friendship with Dolly, was later asked how she felt about the closeness between them. She said she was never uncomfortable about it. She said she simply knew Kenny too well to feel threatened by it. That response matters specifically because it came from the person with the most reason to feel jealous. And she saw nothing that alarmed her. The chemistry was real. And so was the discipline it took to protect what they had. Kenny stayed loyal to his marriage. Dolly stayed loyal to Carl. Whatever existed between them survived because both of them chose restraint over impulse, again and again. Whatever existed between them lived in a space they had created and maintained together, year after year, by choosing it. Kenny never revised that account. Right up until his farewell concert in 2017, he was still calling her a soulmate. And the song they performed that night, the one they had written for each other years earlier, turned out to say something neither of them realized they were saying goodbye to. The goodbye they didn't say. Kenny Rogers retired from touring in 2017 with a farewell concert in Nashville called All In for the Gambler. And of course, Dolly was there. She joined him on stage, and they sang Islands in the Stream together one final time. They also performed the song that had come to mean more than almost anything else in their shared catalog. A song called You Can't Make Old Friends, which they had recorded together in 2013. The song had been written as a simple truth about aging, about the particular value of someone who has been beside you long enough to remember who you were before life got complicated. When they recorded it in 2013, it was a warm song, nostalgic, the kind of thing that makes people smile and think of old friends they haven't called in too long. Neither of them could have known, sitting in that studio in 2013, that they were 4 years away from performing it as a farewell. In 2017, with both of them visibly emotional and neither of them rushing through a single word, those lyrics meant something they had never quite meant in any rehearsal room or recording studio. That song had been born out of something deeply personal. While recording it in the studio, Dolly had gone over to Kenny, wrapped her arms around his neck, and told him that she could never sing at his funeral. The atmosphere had shifted immediately. Kenny held that moment close for the rest of his life and said it was one of his most treasured memories of her. He understood that everything Dolly did came from a place of love, that it was never about performance, never about management. It was always genuine. That farewell concert became the last time they would ever share a stage. Looking back, it's hard not to see how much both of them understood about the moment, even then. 3 years later, Kenny was gone. He passed away on March 20th, 2020, at the age of 81, at his home in Georgia, surrounded by his family. The news broke on a Saturday morning, and within hours, tributes were pouring in from across the music world. Dolly found out the same way millions of other people did. She turned on her television that morning and saw the news. In his final years, Kenny had withdrawn from public life. His health had been declining, and people close to him knew it. Dolly knew it too. But knowing something is coming and actually facing its arrival are two entirely different things. She was not prepared. She sat at her piano, eyes red, voice unsteady, and recorded a tribute video. She said her heart was broken. She said a large piece of it had gone with him. And then she borrowed 4 words from a song she had written herself decades earlier. 4 words that had become one of the most recognized lines in country music. She would always love him. Because Kenny's death came in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, his funeral was private and attended only by family. A larger public tribute concert was held in April 2021, and Dolly performed there too. She stood at that microphone in 2021 and delivered a speech about what Kenny Rogers meant to country music, then sang for him the way she always had, like someone who still couldn't quite believe he was gone. She stood at that microphone in 2021 and sang for him the way she always had, like someone who still couldn't quite believe he was gone. She was not wrong to feel that way. Grief moves slowly. But what was coming in 2025 would ask something of her that even 40 years of loss had not prepared her for. Dolly finally spoke freely. Carl Dean never wanted stages or cameras or headlines. Dolly had met him on her very first day in Nashville, 18 years old, just stepped off a bus. A man in a white Chevrolet who caught her attention in a way nobody had before. She married him 2 years later in 1966, and she never stopped being married to him. He passed away in March 2025, at the age of 82. Dolly announced his death the same way she had protected his privacy for 60 years, with a short statement, no photographs, and no details beyond what needed to be said. She spoke about him simply and from the heart. She said they had been together for 60 years. She said she had loved him since she was 18 years old. She acknowledged that adjusting to life without him meant changing patterns and habits that had been built over 6 decades, and that those adjustments were not small things. In the months after Carl's death, Dolly gave a series of interviews. The stated purpose was her music, her upcoming projects, the usual things. But something in how she answered questions had changed. Journalists noticed it before they could name it. When someone asked about Kenny, she didn't pivot, she didn't reframe, she just answered. People who had been interviewing her for decades said they had never seen her quite like this. Not sad exactly, but done. Done managing. Done protecting. Ready, finally, to just say the thing. The weight of what Dolly had been carrying suddenly came into focus. The 2 men who had occupied the largest spaces in her adult life, one very publicly, the other one very quietly, were both gone. And something about carrying both of those losses shifted the way she spoke about everything. Dolly was a master of keeping the mystery alive without actually feeding it. She had been managing the narrative around that friendship for 40 years. But after Carl's passing, something shifted. She started answering questions about Kenny without deflection, not with scandal, not with confession, but with something quieter. She acknowledged that she had deeply loved Kenny. She said that the connection between them was real and rare, the kind of bond between 2 people who understood each other completely, who came from similar places, who had survived similar struggles, and who had built something that lasted because they both chose to protect it. She talked about the attraction, honestly, without drama, without the old jokes that used to redirect the conversation. And she said that what they chose to do with that feeling every single time was to protect what they had built. Dolly said something similar in her own interviews. She joked that if they had ever become a couple, they probably would not still be friends. She admitted there were moments when she had caught herself looking at him in a way that surprised her. But She also said she always knew, even in those moments, that she would never take that step. Their friendship was worth more than anything a romance could have offered them. Every magazine cover, every tabloid headline, every camera that chased the two of them for 40 years had been looking at the wrong relationship. Carl Dean never attended a concert, never gave an interview, never appeared in a single photograph anyone published. And for 60 years, Dolly Parton came home to him every time. He had always been the one. Now, Kenny was gone. Carl was gone. And the friendship that the whole world had spent 40 years misreading had existed alongside that marriage, not in competition with it, all along. By 2026, Dolly had stepped back from performing. She postponed her Las Vegas residency. She had lost both of the great relationships of her life within 5 years of each other. And she was not pretending otherwise. The woman who had spent 40 years carefully managing questions about Kenny Rogers now spoke with a noticeably different tone, less guarded, more direct. She was 80 years old. Both men were gone. And for the first time, the answer she gave was simply the truth. Do you think she is finally at peace with the choice they made? Maybe the real story was never about whether Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers became a couple. Maybe it was about two people who understood exactly what they stood to lose if they did. What do you think? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.